Ladies and gentlemen, February 22nd, 2024 brought us the highly anticipated live-action series of Avatar: The Last Airbender. The reception was mixed but generally positive. Now, with season 2 in the works, it's time to discuss our expectations for the continuation of the series. My name is Hujat Sama, and this is the Pokka. Taking a closer view at season 1, and in my honest opinion, the first season was barely average. Yes, I know, and before you come for my neck, hear me out. I think many people jumped on the hype train because it was remotely better than the Shyamalan series. Anything slightly better than the Shyamalan series would definitely be taken as a phenomenal take on the Avatar: The Last Airbender. From the storytelling to the pacing and especially the bending, the Netflix adaptation was a significant improvement. The bending in particular stood out because compared to the disaster of the Shyamalan movie, this version was a breath of fresh air. But that's a first-time viewer's perspective. Season 2 will be judged more critically, not just against season 1, but also in comparison to the original animation. Yes, we may not expect it to recreate or recapture the magic of the animated series, especially with the shorter episode count typical of Netflix, but there are still big shoes to fill. The events of season 2 will bring even more characters, more fan favorite characters to the forefront. With that said, let's dive into some of the issues with the first season that generally created this opinion. While many were satisfied with season one's approach, the same approach would backfire if it was to be repeated word for word in season 2. First of all, let's put into perspective that it's an adaptation, and as an adaptation, it has to come with changes, but these changes have to be those that make sense. And a lot of changes put in this season 1 did not actually make sense. Let's take Aang, for example. In the original animated series, Aang ran away because of the overwhelming pressure of being the Avatar, being separated from his friends, and the disintegration of his way of life. His fear and frustration led him into the storm, where he was frozen for 100 years. Upon waking up to a world in ruins, Aang's guilt was rooted in the idea that he had abandoned the world. But in the live action series, Aang didn't run away. He went for, let me see, a stroll, a moment to clear his head. Then he got caught up in the storm. This drastically changes the narrative because it removes the emotional weight of Aang's decision. Accepting blame for something that wasn't entirely his fault doesn't fit in that scenario. It's like going for a jog and getting hit by a car and waking up years later to be blamed for not being at work. The writers altered the premise but reverted to the original consequences, and that didn't make sense. It didn't work. So why blame somebody who was a victim of circumstance? Now, let's look at Sokka and Katara in Omashu. That emotional moment they were trying to bring in fell short because Katara was the instigator in that cave. It wasn't Sokka. So by trying to paint the scenario that it was Sokka that's the problem, while we could clearly see that Katara was the instigator, basically ruined the entire emotional moment they were trying to build. These are the type of changes that I'm talking about. Do not make unnecessary changes. And if you do, you have to follow through with the consequences of those actions. When it comes to character changes, this is something I really need to stress. The showrunners need to be extremely careful when it comes to altering who certain characters are. And an example of a character that suffered from this is King Bumi. Now, in the original animated series, King Bumi was Aang's eccentric friend who taught him to think outside the box. His wisdom and unique approach were key to Aang's overall development, particularly in his search for an airbending teacher. In the live-action series, otherwise, Bumi was portrayed as a bitter old king who was trying to impose hard life decisions on Aang, which completely misses the point of his character and the impact his character had in the overall series altogether. These kind of changes are problematic because once they need to reintroduce these characters in later series or in later episode, we will find a mismatch between what they are meant to do and what they have done, and that overall kills the narrative. Other characters that suffer from such are Roku, Jet, and Paco. If you want a deeper dive into the gripes concerning these characters, please leave a comment below and I'll create a separate video to explain all of what I've just mentioned. Now let's talk about the acting. This was probably the hardest part to sit through. Sokka, Zuko, Ozai, and Iroh did well, and I hope they maintain or even improve their performances in season 2. But the rest of the cast? Nah.
I think it's good, except it sucks.
Aang. He seemed mostly directionless. His goofy moments weren't funny. They were annoying. His angry moments seemed like he was trying to force us to care about him, and that would not sit well with the particular character he's supposed to portray, so the actor needs to do better on that part. Katara, she was the most out of place character, far from the strong central figure we know her to be in the original series. Despite the unnecessary plot armor she was given, she completely looked like she did not need to be in the series. The actor needs to put more into her portrayal. And for Azula, as a fan of the calculated, athletic, and intense Azula from the original series, I was really disappointed. Her portrayal lacked the fire and energy needed for someone who can topple nations. The actress needs to embody the sassy, skilled, and dangerous nature of Azula, or it just wouldn't work. She really looked like as if she probably ate all of Bumi's earth bending in order to take over on Marshall. And let me not even get started on Ty Lee and Mai. Otherwise, this video will be longer than it needs to be. But every single one of these mentioned character actors or actresses need to up their game when it comes to their portrayal. Season 2 has a lot of potential. While Season 1 was barely average, it did some things right, such as expanding on the lore, especially with Susan's comment and fleshing out certain characters' motivation. For Season 2, here are some things I would like to see, and I believe a lot of the fandom would like to see. Number 1 is more meaningful impact on character arc. Number 2, stick to the essence of the original characters and narratives. Number 3, avoid forcing a narrative, especially where it doesn't fit. Avatar The Last Airbender already has strong female characters. There's no need to push forward a forced women's liberation message when the series already celebrates powerful women like Thor, Azula, and Katara. Just let the characters be themselves. And number 4, this is just a missed opportunity from the teaser, but it would have been a lot cooler to see Toph in her perception world before she stomps the ground. It's a missed opportunity, but we hope to see proper CGI in covering that. So that's all we have today. Be sure to like, share, and comment. It really helps with the algorithm. If you want a full-on deeper review of the first season, please say it in the comment section and get this video to up to 500 likes. Thank you very much for your continued approach, and see you in the next video.
No, I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.